Get ready!
Oh boy. Here's the big one. Kingdom Hearts Flipping 3. Yes, I know I'm super late for this. Shut up. I wanted to take my time with this game, which I'm using for my excuse for being lazy, but also because this game is just meaningful for me simply because it exists. When I was really little, I spent a lot of time playing my GBA, and one of my favorite games on it was Chain of Memories. Never beat it, but I really liked playing it despite not really knowing it was just one part of a much, much larger and very confusing whole. Over the years, I learned more about the series and became a big fan, so I guess I've been waiting for this game for over half my life. Kinda weird to think of, but there you go. Another thing that's weird is how many people I've seen say we've been waiting for this game for 14 years, despite Kingdom Hearts getting a new game about every 2 or 3. I mean, realistically, we've only been waiting for this for 5 years since, Dream Drop Distance, and that's not even counting all the re-releases or remasters, but then again, it's far from the 3rd game in the series. It's more like the 12th or 13th, depending on what you count. However many years or iterations or releases people consider as the measuring for how long it's been since this game came out, it's finally here, and I'm making a very late review absolutely no one will care about. Now that it's here, is it the super amazing, unbelievable, incredible, brilliant, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious masterpiece that blows everyone's collective, unprepared minds into another dimension? No, of course not. It never could and nothing ever can live up to the hype of something people claim they've been waiting over a decade for. Duke Nukem Forever didn't, Final Fantasy 15 didn't, Spore didn't, and Half-Life 3 wouldn't come anywhere close if it ever even gets made, which it probably won't. Point is, the game's finally here, and I'm not here to say it's disappointing because it doesn't give me the same experience as playing the original over 10 years ago. I don't really get hyped for anything and make myself excited for something that probably won't be everything I want. So I tend to just take what's made and evaluate it for what it is. Not throwing shade, just laying out my mindset going into this. Now, at this point, I would try laying out and explaining everything that happened leading up to the story in this game, but no. Just no. That's way too much to go over, and I'd have to talk about what happened even before the first game, and I don't have the footage for that, so let's just say things happened, and they were important in some way for reasons, and that's it. Actually, the story of 3 is kinda simple. Well, not simple, but it's not super hard to explain. Sora failed his Mark of Mastery exam in Dream Drop Distance, meaning he didn't obtain the power of waking, which I'm not gonna get into now, and basically got Metroided. So now he's told to just wander around and power up so he can take down Xehanort and his new True Blue Organization 13, composed of different versions of him, and a few returning members of the old organization. Turns out Xehanort wants to forge something called the Keyblade, which is totally different than a normal Keyblade because it's spelled with an X. Don't question it. So Sora goes to regain his power while Riku and Mickey search for Aqua in the Realm of Darkness to help Yen Sid gather enough Keyblade wielders to stop him. So it's kind of like the Avengers, except not much like the Avengers at all. Oh wait, Disney. Kairi and Axel are also learning to use Keyblades to help out. Spoiler, they don't really help out much. Some of the former organization members return to normal and join your side to help out because apparently that's what happens when you defeat someone's heartless and nobody. Like every other Kingdom Hearts game, except for 358 over 2 days, most of the story is just disconnected adventures taking place in whatever Disney worlds you visit, with very little actual narrative happening until the final 1 or 2 worlds. It's an issue I only really noticed from playing 1 and 2 for the past 2 reviews, and kind of confirmed when playing 3, and something I honestly don't like in terms of storytelling. I know, it took me this long to figure out, but what do you want from me? I'm lazy with this stuff. I'm not good at this. The story of Kingdom Hearts is super unique and entertaining, if not at least creative. but the majority of the game is just solving the problems in the movie worlds or some other basic story taking place afterward. Then you go take on the big villain and just get a whole bunch of crazy stuff dumped onto you, and that's kind of what happens in every Kingdom Hearts game. I guess this is why I still think 358 Days has the best story of any Kingdom Hearts game, since it focused entirely on Kingdom Hearts and its characters. The characters and universe of the series is what makes for the best part of the story, and that's something most of the games have in different quantities. Kingdom Hearts 3 is no different, with Sora being as big a sassy dork as in 2, which I love. Riku is still kind of emo, but definitely the most mature character in the main cast, and Kairi is still there. That's really all she has. So, yeah, they're pretty much the same as in Kingdom Hearts 2, which isn't a bad thing because the character interactions and banter are probably some of the most entertaining parts of the writing, and there's plenty of that, so that's a good thing. If there's one complaint I kept seeing more than any other, it would be how the story is dumb and cheesy and stuff like that. People like Ben Yahtzee Croshaw or Jim Sterling, and even some JRPG YouTubers I know, keep saying how big a disappointment the story itself is with how poorly it's written and the usual joke of overusing words like heart, darkness, light, etc. Now, I'm not throwing shade or whatever the saying is, but whenever I hear that, I just have to wonder, have you ever played literally any other Kingdom Hearts game before? If not, why play this game anyway when pretty much everyone kept warning how this is the conclusion to a series built up over a decade and a half? And if so, what were you expecting? The story of Kingdom Hearts has always been stupid, dumb, cheesy, and very poorly written. I mean, this is the brainchild of a man whose main method for designing characters since the mid-90s has been to keep adding as many belts and zippers as he can get away with. This entire kid-friendly series is about an overly optimistic, dorky anime teenager with big shoes and a giant magic key teaming up with Disney characters to battle an evil organization led by an ultra-powerful, time-traveling, body-snatching super wizard formerly voiced by the late Leonard Nimoy. I'm just legitimately curious if people went into this game not knowing that's the kind of franchise it is. The series has always been dumb. Complaining about that is like buying a chocolate cake despite not liking chocolate, eating a piece, and then saying it was terrible. Maybe. I don't know. I just want chocolate. Personally, I really like the story. Definitely not as much as 358 or 2, but still the fun and silly Saturday morning kids anime kind of thing I expect from the series. There is the issue I talked about earlier where the actual story of the game is sprinkled in tiny bits throughout the separate world stories until about the last 3 hours, but that's just another thing that goes for the whole series, so I really come to accept that at this point. Speaking of separate worlds for like the 5th time, most of them are entirely new. Olympus, Twilight Town, the Caribbean, and 100 Acre Woods all return, but the rest are based on newer movies. There's Toy Box from Toy Story, where you run around the area outside Andy's house and a toy store, Corona from Tangled, where you explore the forest and the castle city, Monstropolis based on Monsters Inc., where you go to Monsters Inc., San Francisco from Big Hero 6, which is really cool, since you can explore 2 sections of the city during either night or day. Then there's Arendelle from Frozen. Unfortunately. Alright, might as well get this out of the way. I don't like Frozen. Never even seen it, and I don't care. I put the world on mute for every cutscene, and I have no regrets. Look, I know Atlantica in the previous game was like playing through concentrated raw sewage, but at least they made it clear everyone was contributing to the music, so what's the explanation for when characters sing here? And don't tell me the actual real-life reason for why they had the characters sing. I want an actual explanation for why Sora thinks it's totally normal for them to burst into song for no reason. Where's the music even coming from? Why are you wasting your time with this? Why did you pick a movie with the most boring color scheme and environment? Now, in light of me having massive personal bias against a world with boring presentation, here's my list of other Disney worlds I much rather would have explored. Number 1, Princess and the Frog. Super vibrant New Orleans environments, jazz soundtrack, a villain who would believably join with the organization, appreciation for the only traditionally animated movie Disney's made in decades, and voodoo-themed Heartless. That would just be really cool. Number 2, Up. Again, a much more colorful world with a good villain and themes that would fit in perfectly with Kingdom Hearts. Number 3, Coco. Again, perfect things for Kingdom Hearts and would give the chance for super unique visuals. Number 4, WALL-E, same as the last two. Number 5, Inside Out, how did they miss that one? Number 6, Wreck-It Ralph. Yes, you can summon Ralph, but having a whole world based on the movie would be like a better version of Tron from the previous games. Number 7, Meet the Robinsons. Silly future setting with heavy emphasis on family. Sounds perfect for Kingdom Hearts. Number 8, Lilo and Stitch. We already got to summon Stitch in previous games, so why not let us explore Hawaii? Number 9, Treasure Planet. Come on, that should be a gimme by this point. How have we not been to Treasure Planet yet? Finally, number 10, Goofy Movie. I have no idea how that would work, but I want it really bad, and I think it would be adorable. So, yeah, I didn't really like Arendelle. To be fair, it's not just because I don't like the movie, but also because it's way more linear than the other worlds, which are much more expansive and explorable than in previous games. The worlds are huge this time, or at least have much bigger areas to explore than, the previous ones. Actually, I'm not even sure if they're bigger than before. It could just be how they load larger chunks of the area rather than having smaller rooms or sections. Either way, the levels are just as much fun to explore as ever. My favorite was definitely Toy Box, since you become action figures and run through a toy store with all sorts of neat gimmicks. Plus, when I entered the world for the first time, they showed footage of a fake video game that looks a lot like something from Final Fantasy, and I actually got confused for a second. I thought, whoa, what's going on? Is this like a hidden game? What happened? What's going on? This doesn't look like Toy Story. Turns out it was just Rex playing a video game, and then he mistakes Sora as being a toy based on a character from the game. That was funny. I liked that. Then when you're exploring the mall, you make this. I don't know, I thought it was cute. I liked that world. That was cool. Really though, pretty much every world is fun to explore, and most have some kind of gimmick that makes them a bit more distinct. For example, Corona has this fun little dancing segment that's at least 5 million times better than Atlantica, and Toy Box has big toy mechs for you to pilot. It's just so much fun. Another thing that makes these areas fun to explore is just how gosh flipping dang pretty they look. I mean, wow. This game looked absolutely gorgeous, from lighting to the plants to all the particle effects to the flowing water to the transparent glass. 10 out of 10. There's also something you might have already noticed that's never been seen in any game in the franchise until now. Yes, the incredible, unbelievable crowning achievement for this game's presentation. NPCs. There are finally NPCs! I know these things don't seem all that impressive, but you have to remember, the most advanced piece of hardware a game in this series has been built for until now has been the PS2. Plus, since I just played through 1 and 2 before this one, the graphical leap is just insane to me. It actually looks pretty close to the pre-rendered cutscenes from earlier games, which, I mean, that's an impressive feat considering how good they still look, in my opinion anyway. Super high quality textures, new costumes for each world you visit, which is just an adorable touch. Fully rendered backdrops instead of flat images, and just, I mean, look at it! It's pretty! There are all sorts of little things too, like how Sora's chains are now fully 3D objects instead of just flat textures or circles. Several weapons actually have moving parts and continue to move even when in cutscenes, which, I don't know, I just think that looks cool. And just look at the Caribbean! It's even more uncanny than before! It's freaky! The audio is also pretty great, as is usual for Kingdom Hearts. Can't really say much for the soundtrack since it's not something I pay much attention to in games, but the voice acting is, well, pretty much what I expect. Dumb, corny, kind of awkward sounding, and hammy beyond your wildest imaginations. Props to Haley Joel Osment for being able to voice Sora like this after all these years. He's still doing a great job capturing his personality. Same goes for Riku, Kairi, and Axel, among most other members of the cast. But what happened to Mickey's voice? I'm not sure how to describe it, but it just doesn't sound like Mickey. It sounds more like someone doing an impression of what he sounds like in earlier games, which is really noticeable considering how much more screen time he has. The only other major thing I need to talk about concerning presentation is performance. Just to be clear, I'm not the kind of gamer who needs every game I play to run at 4K 60 FPS at all times, or I think it's complete and utter unforgivable garbage, but it is something I figured I should at least mention. When I started playing this game at release, the choppiness was pretty clear, frantically going from almost 60 to below 30, especially during combat. I am playing this game on a normal PS4, not a Pro, so that probably has something to do with it. I did try putting it on the stable setting in the graphics options, but that just made it run consistently at a lower frame rate. What's weird about my experience is I played the game at launch, and had other things come up that prevented me from recording for a few months. When I came back to record the rest, it seemed to perform better? Not like butter smooth, there were definitely some dropped frames here and there, but it was better than when I last played it. So maybe they released a patch to improve this, or maybe I'm imagining it, I don't know. I just think it runs fine now, so if someone can confirm there was a patch, I'd really like to know. Alright, that's story and presentation checked off the list. Now on to the big topic, gameplay. Says the person who just wrote 26,000 words just on story and presentation. I sure hope I don't have to explain the basic structure of a Kingdom Hearts game again, since I did that in my Kingdom Hearts 1 review, reiterated it in my Kingdom Hearts 2 review, and it's the same basic thing in Kingdom Hearts 3, but with more belts and zippers. Not bells and whistles, belts and zippers. Speaking of belts and zippers, if there's one way I can really describe the gameplay, it would be how much it reminds me of Nomura's art style. As in, it started from a sensible base and he just kept adding on more and more things because he thought it would look cool. So what we're left with is something that's visually interesting, but probably would benefit from someone telling Nomura to just stop. Just stop adding so much. Nomura, calm down. To be fair, I'm just talking about the combat here, but also that's the main part of the gameplay, so yeah. You know all those unique combat elements each previous game had that distinguished their battle systems? Well, they're all here, and more like it's some kind of high school reunion for game mechanics. You got thwacking things with your keyblade like normal, magic, team attacks, link attacks, which are just summons, so I didn't really use them all that much, the shot lock, for some reason, flow motion, and the new mechanics of form change and attraction flow. That's 8 different ways to attack enemies if you weren't counting, and I think I might have missed some, but I don't care. Smacking them around is the same as normal, only now you can switch between 3 keyblades on the fly, that's pretty cool. Plus, all your keyblades are upgradable, so you won't just outright stop using one you like when a new one comes along. I really like that feature. The magic system's been changed, again, to where most of the spells are just gone. Now there's just fire, blizzard, water, arrow, thunder, and cure, all of which except cure being damaging projectiles. I would have liked to see some of the more wacky spells come back, like balloon, because I don't know, I liked balloon. I don't know why people were so mad about that spell. I thought it was fun. Links are just summons. Again, I didn't really use them all that much. The shot lock returns from birth by sleep, and it's okay. It's kind of useful for damaging crowds, but so is everything else. Flow motion's back from Dream Drop, and it's also fine. Makes for some neat set pieces at least. Then there's the 2 big additions to the combat for this game specifically, form change and attraction flow. But first, something I think is just kind of funny about my experience with this system. Back in middle school, I had one friend who also liked Kingdom Hearts, and we talked about how awesome it would be if Sora could use weapons other than the Keyblade in 3. What do you know? That's what form change is. Not going to say how many years ago that was, but I don't know. I thought it was worth mentioning. Every different Keyblade you get has a special second mode that functions kind of like a take on drive forms or command styles, the 2 unique combat mechanics not brought back for this game for some reason, even though they were awesome. All you need to do is hit people a bunch and slap that triangle button, then boom! You have a new unique weapon with new combos and different skills. These things are just so much fun to use, especially since each one offers a different kind of playstyle, ranging from the defensive counter shield, the offensive hyper hammer, the long-range mirage staff, and plenty others. Some took me a while to catch on to, like the mirage staff's ability to create copies when dodging, and then using them to fire projectiles. But they change up the pace of combat in a similar way to drive forms, so it's all cool in my book. Of cool combat mechanics in video games. Some of them even have a second form, like High Wind, one of my personal favorites. It starts as a spear that gives you rapid attacks, but then it transforms into Storm Flag, which I don't know if it's better, I just think it looks really cool, it's fun to use. So yeah, form change, that's not a bad one. Now as for attraction flows, no. Just no. I'm not even going to question why they have amusement park rides just at the ready to summon or where they came from, because I don't want to talk about them any more than I have to. This is basically hit a certain enemy, get a long special attack that fits into the combat like a whole pineapple into a blender. Occasionally, by which I mean every few minutes, a green circle will appear on a random enemy. If you hit them before it disappears, you have an attraction flow added to your command stack thingy right here. Hit triangle, summon a ride, and hit square to quit out of it because it's not really that good. In case you can't tell by now, I really don't like this mechanic. At least with something like form change, it's just a different way to experience the same kind of combat. But attraction flow just gives you something that's completely different and requires less activity than the normal combat. Some just require you to hit one button, one shifts the game to a first-person shooter. They're just all over the place, and none of them really fit into the combat like most of the other mechanics. They give like 2 neat set pieces at the beginning and end, which are the same set piece, but other than that, The one thing I really like about this series is how the gameplay tends to be fairly streamlined. Just walk around, smack things, use a fancy cool mechanic that looks cool and is fancy, and be on your way. With so many different fancy cool mechanics crammed into one game, it just feels kind of cluttered to me. I think 1 or 2 of these could have been left out and the combat would have been smoother and more manageable. Obviously, I think the attraction flows could be taken out since they ironically wreck the flow, but I don't think the shot lock really needs to be in here either. Like I said, it's good for dealing with a large group of enemies, but considering how many different attacks there are at your disposal, pretty much anything is good for dealing with large groups, which is basically every combat encounter. Maybe that's why it feels easier than previous entries. Now don't get me wrong, again, I'm not the kind of person who willingly seeks out difficult games to fulfill my masochistic tendencies, aka Dark Souls. That's just not my thing. However, I played Proud Mode right off the bat, and it felt more like the normal mode from Kingdom Hearts 2. Actually, I think I died less in this game than when I played KH2 for my review. It can still have its challenging moments, but thanks to all the stuff you can do and how much of a range you can cover, it definitely feels easier, which is just fine by me. I'm just giving a heads up. Even the bosses are, well, I don't think any of them were bad, but there weren't too many that really stuck with me. They're a lot more about spectacle this time. Actually, that can kind of be said for everything in this game. Kingdom Hearts 3 is about spectacle, taking all the advantages it can to give the player something that, while not perfect by any means, you really won't find anywhere else. So, yeah, it's a Kingdom Hearts game. It's dumb, poorly written, awkwardly voiced, weirdly paced, feels like there are some things they could have left out, and Donald's voice is more grating than the greatest grater grating a sewer grate. But that's stuff you can say about pretty much every Kingdom Hearts game, because that's what it is, a Kingdom Hearts game. And just like every other Kingdom Hearts game, except Coded, I had a lot of fun with it. Yeah, fun. I enjoyed running around the world, smacking enemies around, watching all the ridiculous cutscenes. There are lots of small touches I really like how the Blizzard spell leaves a trail behind it, so I use flow motion to ride it and dish out a follow-up attack. That was fun. The Ratatouille minigame is adorable and gives all sorts of temporary stat boosts. All the classic Kingdom games are neat to find and nice for a little break. And yeah, I didn't really like traveling the different worlds this time, but you know what? I did make a ship. I called it the Objection. I've been playing Ace Attorney lately, which pretty much is always. I just had fun and that's all I really wanted out of it, so yeah. I think it's a good game. 11 pages of script and 4,125 words later, and it all boils down to, it's good. Not super stupendous, not awful flaming garbage, just a good, fun game. Well, actually there is one thing I'm kind of disappointed with. The lack of Final Fantasy characters. but not for the obvious reasons. See, despite being a massive fan of JRPGs, I haven't really beaten any Final Fantasy game yet. I'm working on 8, but I'm still on the first disc. When I was little, one of my favorite games to play was Chain of Memories, and I loved the weird characters in it, even though I had no idea who they were. Later on, I found out who those cool guys were hanging out with Sora and Castle of Oblivion. I just figured they were Kingdom Hearts characters, but I found out they were taken from this massive series stretching back decades. Even though I haven't gotten super deep into the franchise yet, I still consider myself a fan of Final Fantasy because of Kingdom Hearts, not the other way around. The combination of Final Fantasy and Disney is what this series started as, and seeing how there aren't any returning characters at all is just, well, kinda sad. We have design elements, like how the floaty magic guys still resemble black mages, like always, but there's no Cloud, no Tifa, Yuffie, Sid, Yuna, Riku, Pain, Sephiroth, or anyone. It would have been great if they pulled characters from more modern titles, like 12 or 15 or something. I heard Nomura wanted to break away from that and give Kingdom Hearts its own identity, but dude, your entire series is basically one big licensed crossover for Disney movies. That's its identity. Seeing the diminishing influence of Final Fantasy in the series over the last few games really stinks for me, not as a fan of Final Fantasy, but a fan of Kingdom Hearts. And as a fan of Kingdom Hearts, I can say I really enjoyed Kingdom Hearts 3. It has its problems, and if people were disappointed in it, which most people seem to be for some reason, I don't really care. I had fun, that's all I wanted, so I'm happy with it. It took years to get here, and now it's 6 months after it came out. I think that's all I have to say on it. I like it. You make of that what you will. If some substantial DLC comes out, which I really hope it does, I'll probably come back and make a smaller video on it, but for now, I'm gonna go play something other than Kingdom Hearts.